at the local level to have significant impact through local government. We have a saying at Run for Something that the further down the ballot you go, the closer you get to people's front door. That the day-to-day lived experience of people's lives are very much impacted by local government policies that they put in place. And you may be asking yourself, why Arkansas? As Southern Regional Director, I have 12 states in the Southern region. They're all important. In this instance of Arkansas really stands out to me. We crunched the numbers earlier this year, and in a per capita basis, Arkansas has the most Run for Something endorsed candidates in the entire Southern. And I think when compared to other states, it would be among the highest, if not the highest in the entire per capita. Why is that? Is because we know that there are people here that are hungry for change. I had the pleasure and honor of speaking to a local leader here recently from here, who reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, that part of the work for progress is planting seeds for trees in which we may not be able to experience being in their. Part of the work for progress is planting seeds and maybe waiting years or even decades to enjoy the fruit that they bear. And it's obvious with this representation in Arkansas of Run for Something endorsed candidates that in this state we have these local leaders who believe in this, that the fight for progress isn't only in a couple handful of states in which the media is paying the most attention. The fight for progress is here. It's important. And it's an honor to be in such a packed room. This is more people than we had in Atlanta.
That's right.
The RSVP list for this event is the highest we've ever had in any non-major city in the United States. So thank you for being here, and thank you especially for our partners. A big reason why we have so many Run for Something endorsed candidates. Christine with the Benton County Bench. With the Washington County Bench. We got Jamie with Paul Pack. And our very close co-partner for this event, the great and wonderful and very talented Stephanie with her.
I'm sorry, I'll try to hold it. Thank you all for being here. I'm very excited to see everyone here. If you're not familiar with Emerge, we are an organization that recruits, trains, and supports Democratic women who are running up and down the ballot. All of the women on this stage are Emerge candidates with Emerge training. There are many of you. Raise your hand if you've been through Emerge training. Raise your hand if you're on one of our cabinets or committees. So if you have more questions about what we do, I'm happy to give you my contact information. If you're in this room and you're at all curious what it might be like to run for office, like if you think, yes, I want to do this right now, or maybe I'm thinking about doing it in 2 years, these QR codes here are for a workshop that we're doing this Friday at noon. You can register there. It is free. It takes about an hour, and we kind of walk you through what you need to think about and how you need to prepare for a potential candidate. So it's great. And we're partnering with the Democratic Party of Arkansas to do that workshop this Friday. So I'd love to see all of you virtually on Zoom Friday if you'd be interested in doing that. If you're not here to see me, here to hear from some actual candidates. They're going to demystify this process and answer any questions that you have. Stick around after the panel and you can make with all of them. I would love to introduce someone you may already know. She's a little bit TikTok famous. She's proud of her mom. She's on our recruitment committee and her friends. And she's going to be moderating.
So much. This gets me so excited to see a room that's full. So far out from an election, but let me be clear, we're not very far out. We're not very far out from filing. We need to be making some decisions soon. So hopefully we have some people walking out of here tonight who are stoked to run. So I did run for state representative and then I just got done running for lieutenant governor. And take that back. I often get asked, especially on this side of it, like why? Why would you do that? We saw the numbers. Why would you do that? Because it matters. Okay? Because it matters. We run because at the core of democracy is having options on the ballot. If you don't have an option on your ballot, we're not practicing or promoting democracy. Okay? So Arkansas deserves to have options, and that's a big part of why I ran. I realized that lieutenant governor was a bit of a big race to run for, but I wanted to make the biggest impact that I could and have a lot of fun doing it. Okay, I wanted to show that we could do campaigns in kind of a new funky way and enjoy it. Now I do have some bad news in this little intro. In this last cycle, I'm going to check my numbers. They are this bad. 14 of our 35 state senate seats went unopposed. Who is correct? 44 of our 100 House of Representative seats went unopposed. Somebody just got to be like, I would like to be the senator. And then they want to, okay? Like that can't happen. That can't happen. We've got to have people on the ballot so that we have options. When we have uncontested elections, our politics get more and more extreme. That's how we've ended up where we are here. But we are moving back in the same, or in the right direction. Okay, not the same direction. You guys got me right there. So let me be super clear. I want you to run for office. This whole thing, it's a whole recruiting thing. We're going to hear from candidates so we can kind of talk you into it. I'm asking you to run. And I ask a lot of people to run, and I hear the same thing over and over again. One, I've got too many skeletons in my closet. Two, I'm not qualified. Okay, hold up. Skeletons only have power if we give them power. Period. Everyone in this room has done something that they wouldn't want to trend on Twitter. Okay, so let's just stop it and just move on and focus on what's important. Okay, let's own it and let's move on. Do not let that hold you back. Everybody's got it. I'm not qualified to run. I'm calling baloney on that. If you are an age, as in you have lived a few years, and you live in a spot, you're qualified to run for office there. Okay? That's literally it. Okay, so stop it. You're qualified. So I just wanted to really cover those things. I am ready to introduce these baddies, okay, who have done it. And I'm happy to join them because it's just a fun group to be up here. We're going to start down there on the end with my friend, Dr. Bonnie Boone. Give it up. In the merge class, so we had a lot of fun. She's a former candidate for Rogers City Council, CEO and president of Dr. Bonnie Spoon Consulting, which she started so that she could help support people and helping their businesses grow. She wants to and needs to, I love that, pave the way for others, especially minorities, to push through the challenges that they can be presented with. Dr. Bonnie Spoon is an MBA, the program director at Philander Smith College, which is an Asian university. Okay, very exciting. She's also the owner of Avenue Smokers, which is an awesome name for her barbecue catering company. I love that. This gal is busy. She is so involved in the community. I do not have time to list all the things that she got her hand in, but I do love that she was named the 2021 Northwest Arkansas 40 under 40. To run for office because our government doesn't look like the people it's supposed to represent. It means there are a lot of voices and perspectives that are not being shared. So we are stoked to have her here. Okay, moving on to Miss Daisy Bonilla. Yes, Stacy ran in 2020. We were both running for state house in 2020 in a pandemic. It was an adventure. A fellow social worker, founder and CEO of Growing and Healing, where she helps families overcome barriers. She has always had a passion for serving people, especially people from the most vulnerable communities. Girl has been kicking tail since before she could drive. She started a nonprofit when she was 15 years old. Okay, I love that. She loves being able to connect with clients and families of all cultures. Has been working to empower communities in NWA for over 7 years as a social worker by meeting people where they are. A trailblazer, she was the first Latina to run for Arkansas State House. One of my dear friends, Allison Grigsby Sweatman. Okay. She ran a rocket campaign for Senate in 2022, is another licensed social worker. I love that. A lifelonger, she has been committed to making the state better for the people she loves. Her specialties include early childhood trauma and foster care. Same girl, same. I love that. Allison decided to pursue social work after adopting her son in 2018. And because of the foster and adoption system, she really saw the need for reform of things like special education and adoption. She's got a strong connection to families like hers who have kids with intellectual disability and other neurodiversity. She worked as a legislative editor for the 2021 general session. Bless, that one was a doozy. Okay, can you imagine having to hit that? Listen, good job, good job. Her Senate campaign was centered around the idea of a bright future for Arkansas, knowing that a bright future could take decades to get there, but it's worth it. Again, she is currently serving as the president of the Young Democrats. With a spirit of conviction and natural born stubbornness, she is not going anywhere. Love it. Okay, and our last one. So excited to introduce to you Councilwoman April Shear. It's known in the community for building and enriching lives. Professionally, she helps companies understand the value of diverse leadership at every level. Before that, April served in the U.S. Air Force. Years of military service as a personnel officer. He's also the first person of color elected to the Rogers City Council. He was also elected as a state committee member for Benton County to the Democratic Party of Arkansas, representing the county at the state level. The notion of community, culture, growth, making space for everyone is what drives her in public service. She also serves on a board for Emerge. Okay, so we got us a crew up here. We are very excited to share some of the ins and outs of running for office with you. I am going to start with Allison, okay? Tell me, what were your initial expectations when embarking on your campaign, and how did those expectations align with, reality?
Yes, it is. Thank you for that question.
Absolutely.
Thanks for calling me stubborn. I didn't write that. So expectations, what I say that I definitely expected, the cost that I counted was just the work that it's gonna take, like sleepless nights, planning, executing, organizing, collecting volunteers, getting them where they need to be, like all of that stuff. I kind of was ready for, at least as far as like I knew that was what I was going to be doing, like the work. Whenever you think about like the work of a campaign, what I didn't expect was what it was going to do to me as far as doing my own personal work. And I mean, Kelly, I heard it every single day as my friend, but I tell people all the time, you don't have to know what you think about every single issue. You don't have to be able to explain that to every person who's going to grill you about it in order to be ready to run for office. But you have to be ready to really know who you are. Even if the answer is, I don't have an answer, or I don't know, or I would just more research and get back to you about that. An honest answer that is like, with that integrity is so much more important than having all of the know-how. And then you add things like fundraising, public speaking, all these public appearances, having people digging into those skeletons in your closet, which skeletons are not as big as you think they are, I can tell you that for sure. But all
Maybe
of
yours
those-
aren't. I'm kidding.
all of those things, if you, in my opinion, are doing what you kind of are in for whenever you become a candidate, it should cause you to be doing some personal inner work that no one knows about besides you, your closest friends, your kitchen cabinet, the people closest to you and advising you throughout it, your family, and maybe your therapist, if you're into that. So,
We're all into that.
say, the inner work is not something that I expected. I was like, oh, I've been in therapy for several years. I'm fine. No, it will change. And that's not always a bad thing if you're just sort of, ready for it and taking it.
Thank you, fantastic. Daisy, would you answer the same question, just your initial expectations and how that aligns with reality?
Right, so I am from a little town called Bethel, and a few miles from here. If you don't know it, it has, this little corporation that has little, all of our design beyond. And I think my expectations were, if you've been around Bethel, it looks pretty progressive. It's like inclusive, it's like different backgrounds. Different socioeconomic levels, it looks and feels progressive. So when I decided to run, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have no problem recruiting all these progressive people to come and help my campaign. I started in 2020 thinking, oh, I'm probably like moderate, bordering progressive Democrat, and then I ran and I was like, oh, I'm only liberal. And Bentonville and our partner state, Bentonville, unlike a lot of parts of Arkansas, has never been Democratic. It's never been a Democratic district. And so that was really hard for me. I wasn't expecting the pushback from moderate Democrats. I think I also wasn't expecting the fact that I don't necessarily look like my district. I am not white. I am not older age. I don't fit a certain socioeconomic demographic. I'm not liberal. I'm color, working class, blaming liberal, and it didn't quite align with my expectations. Like, this is my neighborhood. This is my home. I've been here for 17 years. I know how inclusive it can be. We have a big old sign that says "You belong here," but not all of us feel that way. And our elected aren't representing us enough. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me, was in the pushback I got, not even from the opposition, but my own part. But as we build relationships, we start to change minds and start to do things.
Absolutely, fantastic, thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna scoot to April for our second question. I think this is a great question for you. How did you balance campaigning with other aspects of your life?
That's a great question. So for those of you who don't know, my name is April Weaver, and I have a 20-year-old. She is, when I ran my campaign, she was 16. So still at home, still very much needed her mommy, and she is absolutely the center of my world. So what I had to do when I made a very conscious decision at the beginning of my campaign was to create the priorities. What is my priority? My priority is my daughter. My priority is ensuring that I can care for her, right? So then, once you know that those are your priorities, how you run your campaign naturally falls into that. So Sophia played soccer. So Saturday and Sunday mornings, before we went to soccer games, we would spend an hour and a half campaigning. We would go out to neighborhoods and we would canvass. But remember, we were in the middle of a pandemic, right? So you get in when you fit in. We didn't have to worry about talking to people per se, unless we talked them outside. But that's how we worked it in. When she was at practice, I would go out with some friends and hit some more neighborhoods. When she was watching TV and I had the free time, we would send out emails or texts. It's very flexible. You figure out what your priority is, you stay true to that, and then everything else just falls in. And it just becomes the way of working for that time period while you're running your campaign.
Fantastic. You know what? I'm gonna jump in here because I can. I have a microphone. I have 7 children and I just ran for statewide office. It's the thing that you can do. Okay, I did it in like this ridiculous manner, but it is possible. And we found a way to kind of balance it. My husband's here, so he may just call me Ed over there. No, don't look at me, please. But you know, I would take different kids with me to different events, whatever, if we're going to a fair type thing at a park and there's different booths, I'm gonna take the little guys and they can jump on the bouncy house. If I'm driving all the way to Southeast Arkansas, I'm gonna have my 18-year-old drive me and we're gonna chat on the way down there. We found ways to make family time. And I utilized the heck out of social media, which is how a bunch of you kind of found in the campaign, which allowed me to be wicked efficient in how I met people. Because I was meeting them where they were at, home on their phones, and I could make these while my kids were at school and then spend time with my kids when they got home. And so there were ways that we found to make it work. Was it a perfect balance? No, Mr. Crowd will tell you that. But we made it work, and it's something that you can do. And I did it on this extreme, so we can do it on local levels. That's what I want us to do here, running for local office. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna switch back to Allison. Don't worry, we're gonna hear from everybody, but for the sake of time, we're just gonna have a couple answer each question. What surprised you the most about your campaign experience?
This is so cheesy. But the thing that surprised me the most is the very, very close relationships that I built and that I, after the campaign, hung on to, even if they wanted to get away from me. No relationship, I was like, well, I'm not being your friend. So, and then, then politics continues, right? Like, just because it's not an election year doesn't mean there's not more work to do. And so I did not expect to become as close as I did, but when you're doing work that is this meaningful and values aligned, it makes a lot of sense that you would become close with a handful of people or more. And so for me, like leaving with people who I feel like I'm going to be in touch with for years to come is something that I did not know was coming.
Fun fact, I've been trying to talk Allison into running for office for like actual years. So yeah, it's a fun time. You're not gonna name for it. And Dr. Bonnie, would you also mix that? What surprised you? What was one of the more surprising things about running for office?
I would say that probably my situation is probably very different, because I went through my campaign while going through conversions. So knowing how that took over, and kind of prevented me from doing a lot of things. I guess that's when I realized I was going through major depression. So amongst all of that, trying to navigate my mental health, trying to navigate being a Black woman running for, in a city council position. And also just seeing how people say, oh, I'm going to help you. Yeah. But then when it's time, nobody. And so that would put me into a deeper, depression. Because I'm like, I'm a woman of my word and I value people. And so if you tell me something, I'm gonna try my best to hold you to it. But when you can't hold your end of the stick, then that upsets me or puts me in a place that it almost makes me look at you like a different person. It doesn't almost, it does. So that was probably one of the things. And like I said, my situation is probably very different from other people, but I did put a lot of trust in people and just not being those people's boots on the ground. That was something that was very surprising. Everybody is so eager and so excited to say, oh, well, I'll help you do this, I'll help you do that. Well, where are you at? I haven't seen your boot track.
Yeah, we need help up here. Like, you can't do it alone, especially, bigger districts, statewide, stuff like that. We need a lot of boots on the ground. And I just want to make a quick note on like the mental health. I remember when I agreed to run for state rep, my campaign managers telling me, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And they were like, well, that's what the job is. And I was like, you know what, they can have a candidate or not. And I know that sounds kind of hard, but I was like, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna do it. And when I've got the energy and the capacity, I'm gonna give it my all. And when I need a break for myself, I'm gonna take it because I'm still an option on the ballot. We're still promoting democracy, right? So, but I've always knocked a few more doors. Yes, but at some point you have to stop and be like, that's all I can do today and take care of myself so that I can be the best person for my family and the best candidate for y'all. So being able to kind of draw those limits is a really hard thing. And thank you for sharing that. Some of the stuff's vulnerable, but stuff is hard. It's a high pressure cooker that you put yourself in. And you want to add something?
I do. So I think one of the things that's really important that we don't talk about is being brutally honest. And that's what you're feeling. It's like you go out and you meet them with this smile and you're so happy. This is a nonpartisan race. Thanks for your support. Here's my card. You're running against so and so. And like, he's fantastic. He's been active in the community for 20+ years. There's no way you're gonna beat him. And it's like, oh. Trying to get out of this storefront and not cry, that's the story that happens. And then you go home, and you're like, okay, life's good. I'm done. And then you've got the 16-year-old or your husband or your friend who was like, okay, well, you've got volunteers lined up for tomorrow. So you can't win, but we're starting over tomorrow. So I do think it's important that we talk about the reality of it does kind of suck sometimes. And it's okay to say, I'm gonna quit tonight, but I'm gonna start back up tomorrow because I have some volunteers.
I quit every week.
Okay, April, just keep it. I want you to tell me what your advice is for running for office as a progressive in a traditionally conservative community.
Okay, so let's just keep on. We're
Just keep
trying
on
to
going.
get out. So all seriousness, I think it's really important that we recognize where we are. And although we're Arkansas, it's starting to shift and we can see it. Practically people where they are. For me, it's personal. I am biracial. My dad, my dad's family is white. My dad is a conservative. My stepmother is an ultra conservative. Our house was in. And so what you really have to put on a different hat and listen. And when you listen to people, what you'll ultimately find out is there's a lot of things that we have in common, but we're not saying it the same way. So I took the approach and I tended to allow them to lead the conversation, and I'm good at asking questions. So I would ask questions of them that would stop them from thinking. And so at the end of the day, it's truly meeting people where they are and what's important to them, and then finding a way to help them understand that that's exactly what you want, what I want, I can help you get this.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, it's a conservative area. We're familiar with where we live. My favorite technique was, hey, I'm gonna get ahead of it. I'm gonna be proactive. I know you're gonna come at me with Second Amendment stuff. Let me go ahead and make a video in front of my husband's gun say, be like, these are all ours and I'm a Democrat, calm down. So, you know, we can kind of dispel some of these myths that exist and be proactive so that we don't have to be reacting all of the time. Can we scoot it on down to Daisy? Daisy, tell me. Okay, so you run for office, you're not elected. Not all of us got to win up here, maybe soon, but not yet. So you run and you did not get elected. So what do you do next? How do you find the motivation to keep serving your community?
Good question. I would say, I think first we're gonna take a break. We're usually on break after you run for office. It's exhausting. You worked your full-time job, you're working plus a full-time job that doesn't pay you, and very grateful. And there's not, you put your life on hold or you put everything out there that you don't win, it's important to rest. And I think just reevaluate if we want to do this. I think most people who run for office are already public service. And being elected from an official public service. So for me, it's always been about, it's important to continue working in, with, and for the community that you're trying to represent. And so to me, that's always been the case. I live in Bentonville, but I work in Rogers, that's where the predominant community that I work in. And it's the stories that I continue to hear in my practice, the stories that I keep hearing as I meet people where they are, the stories that I hear when I'm trying to build a nonprofit. Those are the stories that keep the fire going. You may not have been elected, but that public servant part is still there. And so finding ways to make sure that you are doing the best that you can to affect change, to help as many people as you can, and maybe that.
Amazing. Thank you. Dr. Bunnings, would you answer the same question? Like, how do you continue finding the energy to serve the community after a loss?
Well,
I mean, I know you're doing it. I didn't have time to list it all.
so I live part-time in Northwest Arkansas, part-time in Little Rock. My job at Belinda Smith University.
My apologies.
Effective 8/1/2020.
That's exciting.
it's a ministry, not a job. But not just that, but I was introduced to Vortex Tech. And it's probably one of my favorite jobs ever, because I didn't win. I didn't win my position as city council because Rogers wasn't prepared for me. So that's how I take it. So I went to bed and saying, okay, I did win. You know, I'm still alive, so I still win. But, being introduced to Vortex and still being involved in the politics from that perspective was important to me. I may not be running, but I'm learning from other people not to run. And that gives me, what did I say, all the warms and fuzzies inside. So we had, meetings and they're like, okay, now it's time to figure out what we're gonna do for training. I'm like, oh, I have all of it.
I love it.
So that's what keeps me going. And then also just trying to get my students involved, like I've asked a lot of my students, like, hey, I'm I told my students, like, hey, this is when you need to understand what politics is about. I'm not asking you to go one way or the other. Wink, wink. However, you need to understand what it is that is out here in this ghetto of the United States of America. So I'm thankful for Vortex Tech. It's kind of like my comeback of losing city council, because I'm winning with that, but I'm also being able to make an influence and impact on my students who are our next leaders of America.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the reframe of the laws. Because yeah, we're not all going to win the election. But part of this process, Stephanie sat me down and she was like, listen, girl, the numbers, they're bad. What are our alternate wins? What else do we want to accomplish? And something I cared a lot about was engaging the youth. Okay, well, guess what? We engage the youth. Did you know out of the entire nation, Arkansas is one of 4 states whose youth voter turnout went way up in the last. Okay, the other 3 states are different. So that's a big deal. We got the youth involved. And guess what? A lot more of them are turning 18 before this next round. So I've got one question that I'm going to ask of April and Allison, but I wanted to give you guys a chance. We're going to have a few minutes at the end for a couple of audience questions. And I'm going to run my tail out there with the microphone. And I know you're going to say, oh, I don't see it. Yes, you do. I can't hear very well. But I want to give you a chance to think about a question while I ask this last one. And we're going to start with Allison, just keep that in mind. What would you say to people who are thinking about running for office but are hesitant?
That should have been my
I'm not giving you those.
Okay. So. Stand up for this. Good run, because everybody in this room is eligible to run. It's going to pave the way for people that look like you, to have supporters that look like you, to help us to navigate the space of politics. I can't do this as a Black woman without people that look like you.
I would say that I'm gonna be the person who's, I think that everyone should consider running for office, but I think it's where you jump in, you do talk to people, like, you know who they are, who really know who you are. And they might not understand what it means to run for office, but talk to them about the workload that it'll be, like I said, the inner work that it's gonna call you to. And prepare them for it so that you can prepare yourself for it and really have a dialogue with them about that. I think that can only give you good perspective going into a campaign that I do hope you take on.
Yeah, that's right. All right, April, what you got?
If you are thinking about running, you should run. We have so many, as Kelly said, we have so many open seats that go uncontested. So you have people who have been in position for 30+ years because they never had someone run against them. Local politics matter. We have so many positions. It doesn't have to be state rep. It doesn't have to be lieutenant governor. It can be the justice of the peace. It can make the school. It can be city council. There are so many positions that require someone who cares to run. And there is a room full of people here tonight that are committed to helping you be successful. There are so many tools, there are so many resources, and what I would say is you have to ask questions. There are some of you in this room that I'd like to see. Who probably get a little text with my two little hands waving. She didn't want to answer it because it was another question. But there is somebody in this room that will help you answer that question so you can keep moving forward. I'll help you.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I would also add on to what Ron said. You also, if you're thinking about running for office and you're worried about how conservative the state is, do it and because you don't know, apart from the people who are going to help you and help collaborate with you, you don't know who you're going to inspire and encourage to run out. And I think for me, that was the biggest blessing, was in seeing one of my friends, one of my volunteers decide to run for school board after I ran for state house. And that was the state volunteers to my life. Another Latina running in Bethel. And so my mentor was actually the first Latina to run for state house in Arkansas, but I was the first Latina to run in Bethel. My friend was the first Latina to run for school. And that was inspiring, and I know that behind her are other people who are now inspired to think this is now possible. I've seen my friends do it, and I can definitely do it. So if you're afraid, I would encourage you to do it.
That was one of my alternate wins. Like, I want to run a race that shows people that other people can do this. If I can do this, you can do this too. And I wish we had kept a better tally, but we got upwards of 20 or 25 people who saw the campaign and reached out and said, hey, Kelly, I ran because of you. And some of them won. Okay. We had a progressive win up in Bella Vista, who ran because of my campaign.
If you know of someone who should run, come to them with a group of people and say, hey, we're nominating you to run. Don't, make the person feel better about running, knowing that they have a team of people behind them. It's harder for a person to run by themselves and then trying to find those people when all of you could know that it's one person who you think should run and we can help them to win a race.
And I can't remember if I said this in the beginning, but women typically need to be asked about 7 times.
You only have to ask me once. Because if you count
Okay, but most women, it's a lot of asking, and so you ran, you may be the 6th time, and then the next one might be the one that does it. Let me be super clear, I'm asking every woman in this room to run for office. So there's one, hopefully it's the 7th time. You do, are welcome to, but we also have life, so like, yeah, there's that. Okay, it's the virtual question. If you, and this, we're just gonna pop it out, I want one person to answer it. If you decide to run again, what would you do differently? And then I'm gonna roll out here and get somebody to answer one.
I'm not running.
It's hypothetical, okay?
Oh, okay, make it up.
If I decided to run again, I would, one, start fundraising sooner.
Yes.
Yes. And I would take more organized approach. One of the keys to being successful is being organized. Not necessarily my strong suit. And I think that would be it would be so much more beneficial if you had a plan in place and if you had the money behind you. When you start.
Yeah, the money part's pretty important, it turns out. Who's got a question in the audience for anybody on the stage? Somebody's got a question. Right here, yes. Hey, Bob.
I'm Bob Stafford. First, before I ask my question, I just want to let you know you all inspired me so much that I used my special time travel bracelet. I went back about a month ago and I filed a run for city council. I have a good idea how campaigns work. My wife and I have worked on campaigns for a marketing company, a lot of progressive campaign. And her own included, she's a justice of the peace. The point is fundraising and asking people for money. So, and I know that's what I have to do. How do I do that?
I'll go. So. Well, I want to say that there's a really formulaic, patriarchal, structured way that everyone tells a candidate, no matter who they are, how to raise. Okay, and I say patriarchal because it's very, very formulaic, and it's just like, it doesn't work for everyone. I think that what we all have to get over is just the act. Okay, just the asking and the receiving of it all, that's all you have to do. Like voice it down to, I need money to do this. And this thing that I'm doing is worth the personal that I'm going through as I'm trying to like figure out how to ask for money, right? Everybody has money back. Whether you have a lot of it growing up, or whether you have very little of it growing up, or whether you have like medium, middle class, everyone has money baggage. And don't take on the person on the other side of the phone, don't take on their baggage whenever you call them. Deal with your own, like, you know, and get to a place where it is an exchange of value. The work that you are doing is valuable to the person on the other side, and their values align. So you really don't have to be afraid. You really don't have to be afraid. Know that you are going to have a really awful phone call about that is fundraising related, and you can shake it off and try again the next day. That happened to me so many times. But yeah, I guess I would just say, take all the advice. Everyone has advice about fundraising. I'd love to talk more about this afterward if you don't need to get help. But take all the advice, but remember, at the end of the day, all you have to do is ask and receive. that's the only formula that everyone has when it comes to it. And you can really do it your own way as long as you.
If they say no, then say, well, do you have a friend I can call?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did. They have it, they're just doing.
Thank you. Before I get this back, I want to point something out to everybody, because we hear a lot of discussion about Arkansas, the red state, and why should I run, why should I go? Arkansas has only been a red state for 15 years. Before 2008, we were a blue state. So it's only been 15 years. We can get it back. We have to vote. Get it back.
You gotta run.
We gotta run, we gotta vote. So we can take it back, and we will.
I want to add the fundraising piece, and I used to make this joke about foster parents. We were foster parents for a long time. Most people don't want to be foster parents, but they would love to help you be a foster parent. Let me send you some clothes. Let me send you some meals. Most people don't want to run for office, but they would love to help you run for office. You might be surprised at the generosity of some people. And on some of the bad phone calls, the discomfort, the awkwardness, the painfulness, it lasts about 10 seconds. And you can breathe through that, and then you can hang up and move on with your life. That's it. That's it. You gotta be able to shake it off. Shake it off.
Call someone else who's running for office who also doesn't make phone calls for an hour, and then to them and tell them the story and just like shake it off.
Allison and I used to plan our call time at the same time and then we could work it out for later.
And also, make sure we're not calling the same people.
Okay, I'm gonna touch on this one. This is another virtual question. How do you navigate fear for your safety or your families in this political climate? I mean, I would say, I ran as a woman in Arkansas. I traveled all over the state. I did do some of it by myself, and I rarely felt unsafe. Now, safety in numbers obviously took my teenage son, who's real large, with me to a lot of events. I had a handful of times where there was one person that I felt maybe kind of uncomfortable, and I just had my campaign manager like, I don't like that. I don't like this vibe here. And then they would kind of take care of it, like to make sure somebody's watching that person. I'm pretty sure somebody in the room walked me out of a party out on the streets. And you know, every now and then it happens. Just gotta be assertive and ask people around you who are watching out for your back. It's a doable thing. I don't think it's a reason not to run. Real quick before we turn it back to Ben, I'm gonna, or Paul, forgive me. I'm gonna do one more. What would you recommend for those who want to run but struggle with mental health? I mean, hey, let's normalize struggling with mental health, right? A lot of us are struggling with mental health. Anybody want to add?
I mean, I made it through it. Because I still got the same amount of votes as somebody who had 6 generations of the Rogers natives. So I still pushed through it. I still had the encouragement to do it, but what I would say is come up with a plan. On your team, you need to have somebody who you can be very, very open with, to help you navigate through those different thoughts, those different things that are going on. So, for example, for me, if I had a really tough day navigating the depression that happened before I started running, it was, okay, let me call one of my mentors, talk to them because I'm struggling with trying to find what I need. And then from there, I would be encouraged. So you need to have this person who's like going to be by your side to give you that support, to give you those words of encouragement, to lend that hand or that shoulder to help you to push through over the next 5 minutes, because you literally only have 5 minutes to cry, because then you have to keep going. So you have to make sure that you are in a good spot. I'm not saying that you have to be totally mental health, the right word to say. I'm not saying that you can't have mental health issues and run, because I did. But what I am saying is make sure that you have a plan. You have a therapist who you can call and say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Things of that nature, but you don't want to go through it without some type of mental health. Absolutely.
Yeah, regularly tell my therapist about the thing, regularly.
I have something to say.
Please say it.
I also think that it's important, like I said before, about knowing, like talking to the people before you run who know who you are. And if you know that the level of stress that you really can't even get is coming as a candidate, if you know that that's coming, the things that you have buried from your past are going to come back. They might not come back in the same form, but they're going to come up in those stressful situations. And having those people ready to go. I would say also, I'm not one of those go to therapy to everyone therapists, because it's like not accessible to everyone, but if it is possible for you to have someone who is even outside of that circle of people who is really low right now, to bounce those ideas off of, to prepare you for that stressful season that's coming. I'm sure one of us can make a referral. Also, it's so important to have somewhere to go that you know it's just a lockbox for all the things that you're thinking of going through when you're in that struggle.
And again, anyway, like April mentioned earlier, like I incorporated my daughter into this process. You know, we can find ways to fold it in. I've got things in my life that sincerely help my mental health a lot. Running is one of them. And so I teamed up with Annabeth Mormon in Little Rock, who was running. And we ran a couple of 5Ks across the state, and we'd wear our little t-shirts, we talked to everybody, and we had the biggest time. And then I was like on a runner's high all day long. It was fantastic, which helped my mental health, and we were campaigning at the same time. And listen, if your girl loves anything, it's efficiency, which is why they got me to moderate this panel, because I don't like it when things go over, and I want to get to the networking piece. And so I want to give each of our panelists like 30-45 seconds to give kind of a closing remark, like what's this thing you really want our friends here to leave knowing, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Paul. Whoever can go first, but you all gotta go.
What I want everyone in this room to know, is how rewarding it is to serve your community. Because I've given a voice to individuals who believe for a very long time their point of view, their perspective, their needs, their wants were not perfect. I have given my daughter an example, be the change that you want. She's very strong, but very like this little chick has this great big bold personality. She's convinced that she can rule the world, and I quite frankly am convinced as well. But I have given her an example of say all of these things, and now you do it. And there are so many young people, that's all they need, is the example of someone coming before them to go do it. Yeah. The first thing that is a thing that people say all the time, and it's said in many different ways, but like, remember your why. remember your own reason, your personal reason, like people is always talking about her daughter. For me, I'm talking about my kids, I'm talking about special education and disability rights, which is pretty niche in like the regular conversations that we have in politics around here. I would like, if someone asked a question about special education when I was a kid, I would be like, you know, like, this is my time, because then I worked on all the other issues so that I could run and give you a candidate. What I'm trying to say, those niche things do not make you like a one-lane person, a one-lane candidate. That's your why. That's the thing that matters to you, and that's the thing people want to act. Whenever earlier there was a question too that I can answer, but the answer to what you do whenever it's over is find another way to live out the life that got you to the campaign in the first place. And those opportunities are all. It might not be explicitly political, everything's political, but there's a way to work that out and really make that change. And so that's what I would say, is remember your why and find another way to be working it out, if it's not to be, but I hope it's all.
The best piece of advice I have is if you have the students the smallest information that you want to run, be brave, be bold, and do it anyway. If you're afraid, because don't wait for somebody to come ask you if you want to run for office. Don't wait for anybody to come give you permission to run for office. If you want to run for office, you have a passion for your community, you are seeing things that are not being done right, that represents your community, do something about it. Be brave, be bold, and run.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna cut it down and just say, to everybody's point, you kind of just have to do it. You know, you can't think about it for a long time, because then you'll talk yourself out of it. So there are a lot of organizations out here that are here to help. And you have to utilize them to help you navigate that space. So if you have the passion for people, for community, like I do, like I'm super involved in the community on tons of boards, allow those people to help you. But make sure that you have a really good team, and make sure that you're reaching out to these organizations to help you to navigate the space of politics, because it can get you a lot. Now, for me, and I know I'm going over my 30, 45 seconds, whatever it may be, when you're asking for these donations, it's okay if they say no. The worst they could say is no. So you have to keep going to the next person, dial the next number, and keep on dialing. Let it be the encouragement you need to keep dialing and asking people for those funds. So just do it. Get past the no. It's not the end of the world. You're still alive. So it's okay. But if you need support, I'm here.
I want to add. As I was debating, I remember actually thinking, I don't know everything about being a state rep. I don't know everything about the check. Guess what? It's 2023. You can Google that. Okay. Watch your state legislature for a hot minute. You're gonna feel much more qualified. Then I had an even more ridiculous thought. I don't have the right clothes for that. I know, but then I was like, you know, those are the kind of clothes I wear. I'm gonna run as Kelly freaking Kraut, and I wore tennis shoes to every campaign event. I promise you can look at all the pictures. Do what you want, run it yourself. Don't let something like that hold you back. So those are my closing statements, and I'm gonna turn it back. Thank you.
I think we can give it a one more time to our amazing speakers. This one gives some final thank yous and remarks. I want to thank Black Apple for hosting. I want to thank our partners, Emerge. A reminder for the QR code, stepping forward. If you're interested in running for office. Want to highlight Paul Pack. The Benton County Democrat. And the Washington County Democrat. No one on our side runs alone. Things like this, things like big lists like campaigns, they require a lot of our community. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. The panelists that we heard from, these women, they're exactly what Run for Something is about. They're exactly what Emerge is about. We need young, diverse leaders. We need new leaders to help us build the future we want to see in our community, the future we want to see in our country. We are endorsing and supporting candidates across the country who are fighting against election deniers, who are fighting some on the municipal level to find creative ways to protect abortion, the Women's Reproductive Health Care Act. We're backing candidates for school board who believe in public education. We're backing candidates that believe that books should be on shelves. That we should teach our children the history of this country and help set them up for success in this society. And we need your help. QR codes that are across the room. Please contribute to our work, to Run for Something. We endorsed over 700 young candidates last year. Over half of them are women. Over half of them are candidates of color. Over a quarter of them were members of the LGBT community. We believe in a new future. We believe that together we can build. We believe we had a candidate that we backed and supported that introduced at the city council level a ban on conversion therapy, conversion torture. We backed the city council candidate that fought to block harm reduction measures. The city council, the Democratic city council, was in the opiate crisis center of the country, wanted to ban harm reduction. We backed candidates that are fighting to keep books on shelves. So we need your support. Together, we can fight, we can plant the seeds for the trees, for the fruit, and hopefully, we get these wins along the way. But maybe the future that we see is not that far away, in which we can stand in the shade of the seeds that we're planting right now. There are a whole community of people in this room that are just enthusiastic to support anyone here that wants to run for office, that wants to provide information to people that want to run for office someday. Maybe not now. Yes, we need people to run now. Filing deadline for a bunch of offices in Arkansas is coming up in about 90 days. But maybe you're not ready now. Maybe you need some more information. We have a whole community here to support you. No one on our side runs alone. Thank you so much for attending. This attendance is wild. It's much bigger than we've had in anything comparable, and much bigger than we've had in cities that were much bigger. Thank you for being in this fight. We are so proud to be here, to be in this fight with